everybody, and today we are here with another board game review. Today we'll be reviewing Adventure Games Discover the Story, The Volcanic Island by Cosmos.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and today we will be covering adventure games and we will be telling you why you should play this game or why you should not play this game. So you might be thinking that's a little bit spoiler, but again, my reviews are going to be focusing not on how it felt in the end, but how it felt overall. And this game is a little bit convoluted for my simple
Don't.
mind, and that's why we are going to tell you who should play this game, and maybe for the majority of the people, this might not be the right game. Right?
It all depends on your opinion. If you like it, play it. Play it continuously.
Alright, so before we go into the in-depth, let me give you a little bit of idea that how this game works in case you have never played an adventure game before. Now Cosmos already has a line of games called the exit games, and those are escape room type puzzle solving games, and the adventure game series is more of a point and click adventure. It's more of a reveal the story kind of books, so it does not have that many puzzles, but it's more narrative driven, whereas the exit games have nearly no narrative.
It's kind of like the exit games. It has one straight path. But in these adventure games, there are two different paths. You can choose if you want to perhaps choose any option. If you perhaps want to steal,
Yeah.
or you want to not steal.
Yeah, so it's a more refined version of choose your own adventure books that used to come now, but with gamer like components. So how the game works is that it will give you a kind of a location, and slowly the map will grow, but you will start with one basic location and it will have different locations with some number on it. And essentially, just like any point and click classic computer games, if you want to explore something, you will click that number, or that means in this case go to this booklet and read that specific entry. So that means you are trying to interact or explore that location. Now it comes with a lot of entries. It's a really big book with a lot of pages, because again it's very heavily narrative driven. So once you explore something, you might find someone standing there, you might interact with something, and the narrative will
You
tell
might
you
get something.
to pick up something. So for example, it might tell me to pick up a rope because I found it, and at some other location I might found a harness. And how you interact with these things, these go in your inventory, and how you interact with these things is you combine their number. So you will read 10 and 11 cards were these, so it will tell you to read 10 and 11 1011, and when I will read that entry in it, it will say you combined these items and you got a rope tied up in a harness.
Yep.
So it will tell you in this way actually you can combine stuff, and then you can use this stuff with the numbers here on the map as well. And that's essentially how you will play the game.
That's most of the game.
Yeah, and nothing more than that. Sometimes when you will interact with things, then it will tell you that now you have a new location open, and it will exactly tell you where to place those tiles. So there is a plethora of these tiles available, which are alphabetical, and the number tiles, number things are items or evidences that you are trying to collect. And that's how you play the game. Now let's come to the story of the game. The story of the game is you are students of a university and you are trying to actually, you have come on a field trip. But the problem is that during that field trip, you also have reports that some smugglers are actually smuggling things from here as well. We will not go into more detail than that, because again I will be spoiling the story, which is the real thing. But that's the setup.
The story is like good, but the game is just, oh my god.
Well, okay, now let's talk about the story, because the thing is, this game is a story driven game. So, and the gameplay, as I've explained, is not much there. The gameplay is just to explore that story in different ways. Uh, and a game which is 90% story and only 10% mechanisms, you want that 90% to be really good. Now, I will tell you, when I bought this game, the setting that we are on a volcanic island and there is some smuggling going on, the setting seemed really cool. It was unique that we are students. We are not, because a typical story would be that you are a task force, a police team, and there is some smuggling going on and you want to catch those smugglers. That's a very simple story. But in this one, the unique twist was that you are students and you are on a field trip, and then you find out that there are some smuggling going on and there are different seismic activities that are happening,
Seismic?
disasters, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and those kind of things are happening here. And those events are being used by the smugglers to actually smuggle things out.
Even
So
though I have to ask, how did they do that during natural disasters? I mean, come on, earthquakes?
yeah, so
What do you think?
that was a unique setting. So plus points for that, that it came up with a really unique setting. But everything after that is a disaster in itself. Rather than a
Literally.
natural disaster, this booklet is a disaster because the story becomes so convoluted, and even though I have played previous adventure games, and the real fun was that while the story is happening, you are trying to solve that mystery in your head as well. But here, the story was so confusing that you couldn't solve
I
anything
I couldn't solve half the words in my head. I
because
didn't understand half them.
you really didn't understand what was happening. And the
I
problem is how this is written. This is not a problem with the game mechanics. The problem is how this is written because
I don't understand half the words they use. I'm not Shakespeare.
well, I don't know that why what the problem was. Maybe because this game was designed by two Australian guys, so Phil Walker Harding and one other person, Matthew Dunstan.
Forgot.
So Phil Walker Harding makes family games. I really appreciate all his games. He's makes some of the very fun family weight games. Now, maybe they wrote the story in English and then they translated in German because this game is Cosmos is a German company, and then they retranslated it back in English, and maybe at that time some problem happened. Either that's the case, or whoever wrote the story had a story in his mind, but that story never went to a proofreader or an editor, just like an editor for a book. This book needed an editor, that somebody looks at it and says it makes sense
I
or
mean,
not.
my father even explained the whole process of making a book. You write the book, someone sees it, and if they approve, sell it.
So that's what should have been done. An editor should have been sitting on it and looked at it and said that no, rewrite these paragraphs because they are not making sense. And sometimes the dialogues they have written without any mention of the names of the characters, they have mentioned it here. So you even don't understand that who are
Is
the
the bad
guys,
guy talking? Is the good guy talking? Or
who are the
talking?
guys, yeah, talking to each other. Because in the end, it is a mystery
Come on.
story, so they don't want to reveal everything to you. Okay, that's
Is
understandable.
Cosmos talking?
But then, uh, even if they had said, okay, voice number one said this, and voice number two said this, and then voice number one said something back, because right now you don't even understand sometimes in some paragraphs that are there three people, five people, or two people talking to each other. So it becomes really convoluted. Now, the good things I did appreciate about this game was the artwork. Now, the artwork in adventure games,
The artwork is just wow.
it's
Some,
beautiful.
somebody teach me this.
So, in the previous games of adventure games, the artwork was just fine. Okay, it was functional. It was gloomy. It was dark. But
It was not bad. It was not blurry. You could understand the symbols, but it just looked sad.
yeah, it was sad. Yeah, because they were more realistic settings. Well, this is a realistic setting, but it's a colorful jungle, and its lush environments with volcanoes and other things. So the artwork was beautiful to look at. The uh,
The colors are vibrant.
the characters were even vibrant, but the problem happened with the story itself. That the story just didn't pull everything together, and that's why I think,
Naturally, a story's main concept is to make everything. It's just to make everything make sense.
yeah. So
For example, if there's something fishy going on in the background, the the book should explain it, and it
and
would have matched perfectly. But
and
no,
I
this did
think
not do the
that's
job.
that's the main flaw, that somebody, especially for games, you have to understand that who is your target audience. Your target audience is looking for a fun story. They are looking for something simple. Okay,
Perhaps even
but somebody
humorous.
thought they are writing the Odyssey by Homer, and they use that kind of sense and
What's honesty?
that kind of literary. They were not supposed to write a literary work of art,
This is not
and that's
English.
and that's what they
This
did.
is not an English class.
So that's about it, and that's why actually you should be the judge of that. That do you think that's a kind of game? Because maybe I might be completely wrong. I might have not understood this story because I'm a simple guy. I was expecting a simple story.
We're
But
simple.
if you are going with a mindset that you can understand more complex storylines,
Are you a genius?
no,
If you're a genius, fine.
that was one of again the things that I have finished this story, but there are kind of two things happening in parallel, and half of that, even after finishing this, I really didn't understand that what were we doing. Half of that we didn't, and
Half of
that's
the
why.
time we just spent mixing random objects together and trying to get a result.
Yeah. So 50% of the game fun was lost, and by the time we were done halfway with this game, we just were wishing, when will this finish? We just want to get it done and
At
play
the
something
first,
else.
actually, at the first, it was really nice. It was slow. It was calming.
Yeah.
It did make sense, but in like in the middle, it just went haywire. Like
Yeah, and then
a
it all
lost aircraft in a radar.
and then it all didn't make sense. So anyway, again, as I said, that maybe it was me who didn't make it sense, but all my family didn't have a good time with this game, and that's why I cannot recommend this. Maybe you will have a better time with it, but personally, I was hoping a lot more from this game. The box was really heavy as compared to other adventure games. It comes with a lot more tokens. It comes with a
And
lot more
God, not any of them are different.
interactivity as well, because sometimes the characters will come on the board and then you will have some problem and then they will go away. So there was a lot more interactivity as compared to the previous adventure games. The tokens, the story was having many branch routes. That was a positive point. So even if you replay this game, you might end up with different kind of even the overall story may be the same, but still how you resolve those puzzles might be different, because the game will always ask you, do you have this? If you don't have this, then this happens. So that gives me the sense that yes, there are multiple pathways of solving these puzzles, and every time you will play this, you might find something different as well. So at least 2 3 plays you can get out of the same story by playing it in a different way, and then compare your points. The game does come with an app, and the app has fully voiced over everything. The only time, I think there was one time, there was a bug in
Like,
the app,
yeah, it's like
that
a bit mixed, and
yeah, that
some
it
words were
was
not
when we typed
pronounced.
that number, it gave the narrative of something else, so we had to rely on the book for that. But other than that, everything else in the narrative was fine. But
No,
again,
don't forget, they also said some words wrong. Like, they mixed um, goodness with goddess.
yeah, and since the narrative is being done by a single man as well, and that's what again the part where it gets confusing. If they had used voice cast casted different people
And
for
also the fan
different
was breaking
voices,
very fast.
and then they recorded them,
Processed.
then it would have looked more
Like,
professional and it might have made more sense. But anyway, those are my caveats with the game. Even though they started with a good concept, they introduced branching storylines, everything looked good as a package, but overall, just the story let me down, and that's why I cannot recommend it. So for me, it was a 3 out of 10. What's your rating?
um, for me, it's three. No, 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10.
So that's our rating. Again, something not, that we didn't enjoy, but maybe you will. That's it, folks, and happy gaming!
Happy gaming!